Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Good evening, dear scholars, great leaders. We are here again in our masterclass. Thank you so much for joining us again tonight. My name is Mazwe Majola. I'm from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. We are here to discuss leadership. We are here to equip each other, to empower each other, to inspire each other. We are here as leaders to correct each other, to admonish each other. We are here to learn, to unlearn, to relearn, and to co-learn as leaders. We do this every Wednesdays, and we learn a lot from each other. Thank you so much for joining us again tonight. May I just welcome our members and our regulars. Thank you so much. We learn a lot from each other, as you know. Whenever we are here every Wednesdays, we learn a lot from each other. And a special welcome to those colleagues who are joining us for the first time. If you are here for the first time, thank you so much. You are most welcome, and please do participate and feel at home. This is the community of leaders. This is a safe space where we discuss leadership, we encourage each other, and we assist each other. Tonight, we are discussing a very important topic in leadership. Actually, probably, I wish we could discuss this every day, because that's exactly what we need to know. What is the purpose of leadership? If you assume a leadership position, why? What leaders should be doing and what leaders should not be doing? What leaders are called for when they're elected, when they're appointed, and then now they are leaders, they're in leadership. What is their purpose there? And that is what we are going to be discussing tonight. Very, very important, because we always assume leadership positions, and we don't take into cognizance the cost, the dangers, the benefits, the perils of leadership, and also what exactly its purpose. And I'm so glad that tonight we are being empowered and addressed by our own Dr. Cleopas Sibanda. Is not a stranger in this platform. He has addressed us many a times, and I've asked him to come back again to address us, because always we learn a lot from him. He's based in Swaziland, and he is the occupational health and social protection specialist physician. It's a huge term. Dr. Sibanda, you will explain that to our audience, what exactly it means to be an occupational health and special protection specialist physician. He's an author, he's a speaker, he's a scholar, he's an academic. As I'm saying, that we always learn a lot from him. So without further ado, and without wasting any time, let us give him, because we'd like to give him ample time so that he can address us. My brother, thank you so much for availing yourself. I know you're a very busy person. Would really like to learn from you. If you don't mind, if you can just adjust your camera there so that we can see at least there, much better. Yeah, we want to see now. That's much better. Just a little bit up as well. We always do that for our YouTube. Yes, thank you very much. At least we can see you now. We don't want only to see your head, and then we're just talking, and we don't see the whole face there. Thank you so much, my brother, as I said earlier on, really for availing yourself. I know you're a very busy person, but just to come and mingle with the leaders here in this community of leaders. Thank you so much. Can you take us through what is the purpose of leadership? Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof, and thank you very much, all participants. I was talking to Prof the other time that so that we don't waste a lot of time, I had made a pre-recording of my presentation, and I tried to put it up there, and I see it, I can put it up. So let me just put it up. It will only take 20 minutes to 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 play, and then we can discuss
leadership.
Okay, here we go. Here we start.
Hello, good people. What is the purpose of leadership? This is the topic of our discussion today. Simply put, the purpose of leadership is to solve problems and not to cause them. Please note the dual purpose of leadership in this answer. The first purpose of leadership is to solve problems, and the second and also equally important purpose of leadership is not to cause problems. Hence, the purpose of leadership is to solve problems and also not to cause problems. A leader who cannot solve problems or who is not solving problems is not a leader at all, but something else. The same applies to a leader who causes problems instead of solving them. Leadership must solve problems and at the same time must also not cause any problems. It's not just one way, but it's both ways. True leadership emerges when there are problems to be solved and not when things are smooth sailing. Not much leadership is needed when the seas are quiet and calm and the ship is sailing smoothly. It is when the seas are unstable and rough and when the ship is rocking that leadership is needed to ensure that the boat does not capsize. Therefore, it is when there are problems to be solved that true leadership emerges or is born. The leadership of the biblical Moses emerged when there was the problem of trying to get the children of Israel out of bondage in Egypt and back to their homeland in Canaan. When Moses died, Joshua's leadership emerged and completed that task. We also had our own Moseses and Joshuas in this part of the world. Prior to independence, many of our black African countries had the problem of colonialism. We were colonized by white racist foreigners who forcibly took over our countries and dictatorially ruled us with iron fists, much against our own will. That problem of colonialism saw the emergence of our very own liberation struggle leadership, such as that of Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana, Julius Nyerere of Tanzania, Jomo Kenyatta of Kenya, Samora Machel of Mozambique, Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, and Nelson Mandela, Oliver Tambo, Walter Sisulu, Chris Hani, Steve Biko, Winnie Mandela, and many others of South Africa. All these liberation struggle heroes provided the kind of leadership which was needed to solve the problem of colonial rule. Thus, through their leadership, most African countries were liberated from colonial rule and attained independence, each at its own good time. It can thus be said that our liberation struggle leadership successfully served its purpose of solving the problem of colonialism. Thanks to their leadership, colonialism is now history. Can the same thing be said about our current and post-independence leadership? Let's wait and see. We are going to come back to this issue in a moment. All I can say right now is that put on your boots and get ready to rock and roll when we get there. Anyway, this brings me to the second most equally important purpose of leadership as pointed out at the very beginning of this discussion. Remember, we say that the first purpose of leadership is to solve problems, and that the second and also equally important purpose of leadership is not to cause problems. Leaders must actually work very hard to ensure that their leadership does not cause any problems. There are very many leaders whose leadership failed to fulfill this noble leadership purpose of being obliged not to cause problems. For example, Emperor Kaiser Wilhelm II and Adolf Hitler's leadership caused problems for Germany when they led that country into the First and Second World Wars, respectively. Colonial leadership caused so many problems such that the colonized and disaffected indigenous people of Africa took up arms to fight for independence and also to fight for liberation from colonial rule. Right now, the big question is that, is our current post-independence leadership fulfilling its God-given purpose of solving problems and also of not causing problems? Anyway, let us closely look at how leadership can solve problems. There are three ways or methods of solving problems. Problems can be solved by prevention, by treatment or therapy, or by maintenance of a non-problematic status quo. Prevention means that problems can be solved by anticipating them and then proactively preventing them from materializing, from happening, or from occurring. The medical procedure of vaccination is a very good example of this preventive approach to solving problems. Even in our normal daily lives as individuals, families, communities, towns, cities, and countries, many problems which we have can also be solved preventatively. For example, the problem of breeding criminals or criminal-minded people can be solved preventatively by understanding that criminal-mindedness is not genetically inherited, but all in the upbringing, and then putting into place national level best practice standards, best systems, processes, and procedures, which ensure that all children are born and brought up in ways which prevent them from becoming criminally minded. The problem of the working poor and all its associated challenges can be proactively and preventatively solved by legally and practically ensuring that no formally employed workers are employed indecently or are paid poverty wages or salaries. A poverty wage or a poverty salary is a wage or a salary which, one, is below the poverty line, two, is below the lowest taxable income, three, does not enable personal savings to be made, and four, does not enable personal investments to be made. On the other hand, a decent job is simply a job which, one, does not pay poverty wages or poverty salaries, two, is pensionable, and three, is safe, healthy, and secure. The problem of unemployment can be preventatively solved by practically implementing national business investment, productivity, industry, trade, and commerce legal policies, which ensure that there is continuous year-on-year positive national socio-economic growth and development, and also continuous year-on-year positive job creation. The putting into place of social solidarity, social security, and social protection-based national health insurance fund will proactively and preventatively solve the problem of universal access to top quality healthcare services. In the same vein, the putting into place of national basic education insurance funds would preventatively solve the problem of universal access to basic education. In fact, almost all problems affecting us as human beings today can actually be proactively and preventatively solved through good quality and purpose-serving leadership. There are preventive solutions to most, if not to all, our problems in this world today. The main reason why obviously preventable problems end up occurring, happening, or surfacing is because of the failure of leadership to play its God-given and intrinsic role of proactively solving problems. I want to really emphasize on this point here and now, ladies and gentlemen. The problems which our respective countries have in this world today are caused by failure of our leadership to preventatively solve them. Never mind the reasons which leadership gives to justify its failure to proactively and preventatively solve problems. Failure is just failure, no matter what the cause or reason for that failure is or may be. For example, a school child may have very good reasons for failing matric or O-level. But those reasons will not change the fact that the child failed matric or O-level. No, they won't, right? Most of our African national leadership today have got this mistaken belief notion, inclination, or thinking that if they give very good reasons to explain why they failed to deliver on their promises or on what is or was expected of them, then they would not have failed in their leadership roles just because they gave good or compelling reasons why they failed. This kind of thinking, reasoning, or logic is nothing but just crooked and fallacious thinking, ladies and gentlemen. It's political chicanery of the highest order. Anyway, let us move on to the therapeutic method of solving problems. Therapeutic solution or treatment of a problem is employed when the problem is already there. Therapy or treatment attempts to cure the problem. But as we all know, prevention is always better than cure, right? This is because in addition to it being very expensive and time-consuming, treatment or therapy is not always guaranteed or assured to result in complete cure. Most of the time, there would always be permanent residual damage of one magnitude or the other. This is the problem with therapy-based problem solving. If we go back to what I said about proactively preventing criminality from coming out of our families, villages, towns, cities, and countries through ensuring that we breed and bring up children who are not criminally minded, the old adage that it is better to bring up good and well-behaved citizens right from the start than to try to mend already broken men and women in our jails or in our so-called correctional facilities rings very true and correct each and every day. Once someone is already criminally minded, no amount of therapeutic correction can make them become non-criminally minded again. However, be that as it may, there is still plenty of room for leadership to provide therapeutic solutions to problems, especially at national level. Currently, most of our Black African countries are afflicted with the problems of lack of food security, lack of decent housing, lack of quality healthcare services, lack of access to education, lack of adequate and affordable transport and communication services, and also lack of safety and security services. These lacking things and services are actually basic human needs, and therefore they are also basic human rights as well. Our public leadership must be able to provide therapeutic solutions to our everyday problems or challenges as a matter of routine, because that is exactly the reason why their leadership is there in the first place. The fact that there are a lot of teething problems which affect us and which persist in all our African countries today is exemplified by the rampant criminality, runaway unemployment, homelessness, social conflicts, disease, hunger and poverty, etc., means that our public leadership has failed, is failing, and continues to fail in its leadership role or purpose of solving problems. There is no two ways about it, ladies and gentlemen. If the purpose of leadership is to solve problems, and this can be done either preventatively or therapeutically, the fact that problems arise and persist means that leadership is failing to serve its purpose, right? Full stop. Anyway, for now, let us just agree on this fact alone and leave the question of what needs to be done or what must be done with or to leadership which fails to serve its purpose up to until the end of this discussion. But definitely there must be consequences for the failure of leadership to fulfill its role of solving problems. It cannot be that there are absolutely no consequences at all, right? Anyway, the last method of solving problems which can and must be employed by leadership as it goes about performing its duty, function, or purpose of solving problems is by or through the maintenance of non-problematic situations as they are. They say that if it ain't broken, don't fix it. Don't fix it. It is as simple as that. And I don't think there is any need to add anything more here, ladies and gentlemen. So remember that we say the purpose of leadership is to solve problems and not to cause them. So far, we have been discussing the leadership's role in solving problems. Let us now turn to the other role, function or duty or purpose of leadership, which is that of not causing problems. We have already talked about how Kaiser Wilhelm II and Adolf Hitler failed in their leadership role not to cause problems by causing problems for Germany, the country which they led when they started the First and Second World Wars respectively. How do our current post-independence leaders compare to these two in this regard? I'll tell you how. There is not much difference between what some of our current post-independence African leaders have done or are currently doing in their leadership roles from that what these two erstwhile German leaders did to their countries. The end of colonial rule was supposed to herald the silencing of guns all across Africa. But today, all across Africa, gunfire still rages on unabated. While pre-independence liberation struggle gunfire was directed towards deserving colonialists, today this raging gunfire is unfortunately directed towards undeserving indigenous Africans. The gunfire is pitting brothers against brothers, Africans against Africans, and indigenous neighbors against indigenous neighbors. This problem of endless social conflicts and unnecessary civil wars is caused squarely by leadership, whose purpose is not only to solve problems, but also not to cause any problems. Yet our leadership is not only not solving problems, as we've already amply demonstrated in this discussion, but it is also causing them as well. The problems which our post-independence political leader has caused and continues to cause are not limited to wars and social conflicts alone, but they also extend to other human, social, and economic fields as well. For example, regardless of the racial discrimination, oppression, and exploitation which prevailed up to the day they became independent, many previously colonized African countries inherited from their colonialists very good, healthy, highly vibrant, and viable national economies. However, just a mere generation, that is 30 years or so down the road, those national economies are now unrecognizable. They are now a pale shadow of what they were at independence. One can liken the then newly independent African countries to gentlemen in immaculately tailor-made, top quality and expensive suits in terms of economic status at independence. While the present day post-independence African states can be likened to shameless beggars in torn and tattered rags. What a horrible and unwanted transition from rags to riches. From rags to riches, it has been, good people. This is very sad. Very, very, very sad indeed. Our post-independence African leaders miserably failed to execute their leadership role, duty and responsibility, obligation and purpose of maintaining the good state in which they found our countries at independence. Instead, they socio-economically devastated our beautiful countries and continue to devastate them even further as we speak. What is worse is that our leaders or our current leadership openly agree that our countries are now socio-economically and sometimes even politically worse off than they were at independence. They do this without being accountable or accepting responsibility for what they did in this regard. The tragedy bedeviling many, if not most, of our African national governments today, good people, is that after misgoverning their people and their countries for many, many years, our African leaders openly agree that, open quotes, mistakes were made in running the affairs of government and in running the affairs of the country, close quotes. However, they say this without disclosing the exact nature of the mistakes which they say were made, how exactly these mistakes were made, why they were made, by whom, and when exactly those mistakes were made, and so forth and so on. Again, this is political chicanery of the highest order, good people. Worse still, our failed leadership strongly commits to rectifying those very same mistakes in the coming many, many, many years. They say that they will rectify the mistakes which they admit were made all by themselves and all without having been taught by anyone on how to rectify them. This is very much like a child, a school child, failing his or her homework because of ignorance. They don't know, so they failed. But then the child would boldly go on to undertake to urgently do the needed, necessary, and required corrections, all by himself or herself, and also all without being taught or shown by anybody what they did wrong in the first place, how they did it wrong, where they did it wrong, when they did it wrong, why they did it wrong, and so on and so forth. This is amazing, right? What realistic chances are there that the needed, necessary, and required essential corrections can and will actually be accomplished? Zero, right? This is the tragedy of African national governments. Old wisdom tells us that the person who created or caused the problem cannot be trusted to solve the very same problem which they created in the first place. This is because if they could solve that problem, they would never have created or caused it in the first place. Simple as that. Anyway, when we look at the type of leadership which we have today in our post-independence African countries, can we honestly say that this leadership is truly serving its purpose? Is this leadership solving problems and also not causing problems? The results are out there for everyone to see. And the truth of the matter, ladies and gentlemen, is that our current leadership has lost direction. This is assuming that they once had the direction in the first place. 30 or more years after independence, some of our countries are now total wrecks, and others are fast cascading to total wreckage. The only problems which our leaders managed to successfully solve are the problems of their own personal poverty. This is envisaged by their big bellies, big stomachs, big pot bellies, glitzy and expensive top-range cars, expensive and luxurious mansions, and large harems of wives and girlfriends. Finally, ladies and gentlemen, what must happen to leadership which does not or which fails to serve its purpose? This is leadership which does not solve problems, but instead causes or creates them. Can such leadership be corrected, or can such leadership self-correct? No. I don't think so. Without advocating for illegal and forced removal of leadership, perfectly legal and acceptable ways of changing non-performing leadership, this being leadership which does not, cannot, or is not serving its purpose, must be devised, adopted, enacted, and implemented if Africa is to get out of its current quagmire. The biggest challenge which bedevils Africa today is lack of leadership. Full stop. No more, no less. Leadership which cannot or does not solve problems, and leadership which causes or creates problems, is not leadership at all. It is something else altogether. No amount of self-pity will liberate Africa from its leadership problems. We are our own liberators, and we have got nothing else to lose but our own self-imposed chains. Africa urgently needs to go back and refine its liberation struggle kind of leadership from somewhere, or else we are all going to perish. I raise my case, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.
We'll get him back. He will come back. I'm sure he's just trying to close the system. And when he comes back, obviously he will take some few minutes just to recap what he was saying in his video, and then we can engage with him and then just ask questions and make comments and some observation on his assertions and his presentation there. He's given us 3 different ways of dealing with problems, preventative, that leaders can prevent problems even before they start. I think the other one is what is called therapeutical, where now the problem is there already. So you just have to nurse it and deal with it and make sure that you heal it. And then spoke about the maintenance situation. I think it's back there. Doc, let's give you some few minutes to recap what you are saying there, and then the colleagues will then engage with you. Over to you, my brother.
Yeah, thank you very much. What I'm saying here, ladies and gentlemen, is that leadership has got a purpose. And a lot of people sometimes mistake the process of leadership or the components of leadership or the methodology of leadership with its purpose. But it is very clear that the purpose of leadership is to solve problems. Whether it's at home, in the family, if there is family problems, and the father is the leader, he is there to solve problems. But he is also there not to cause problems himself as a leader. 2 ways. You solve problems and you ensure that you don't cause them. At community, village level, city, town, and national level, our national level leaders are there to solve problems and not to cause them. So when we have got leaders in place for decades, 5 years or so, and the same problems which they found when they got into office still persist at the end of their term, and we give them more terms, but the problems continue, which means the people are failing at their leadership role, which is to solve problems. There is no man-made problem which is insoluble. Even problems of nature, we have found solutions to diseases. So if a leader cannot solve problems, then they are not playing their leadership role. We shouldn't excuse it, even if there are reasons for failing. Failure is failure. And we tend to give reasons to justify people's failure, which is a pity. So we need to have that kind of mentality when we choose our leadership or when we put leadership in place, to give leadership a task, objectives to be solved in 5 years, in 10 years. And if they fail, they should get out and somebody who can solve will come. This is the problem in Africa, that we are a country which is spiraling down the economic ladder instead of going up, because we tolerate leadership that does not solve problems, but in fact causes problems. So this is the gist of the matter, ladies and gentlemen. Leadership is there to cause problems, and leadership is there also not to cause problems. If our leaders are not solving problems, you get into office 1 year later, the problem you found is still there, you have failed, get out. And if you get into office where there was no problem, there is a problem due to you, get out. And let's get them out nicely, not forcibly, not by illegal means, not by coups, not by bloodshed, but putting systems and institutions into place that make sure that non-performing leaders get out. That's why most countries, they've got the term limit, because they know, believe you me, after 10 years of trying to solve problems and you still haven't solved any, you won't be able to solve any problem. So get out, and somebody new with fresh ideas on how to solve problems coming. That's the gist of the matter, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, Doc. Thank you so much. Very, very, very thought-provoking there. Very insightful. Thanks a lot, my brother. Thanks a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, we can now engage with Dr. Sibanda on his thesis of how to be a leader. What is the purpose of leadership? While my colleagues are still coming, Doc, is it possible that a leader may, in the process of trying to solve problems, but causing problems? A person who can think that I'm solving here, but while he's solving is actually causing the problem. Someone once said, the problems that we have today were yesterday's solutions. In other words, at a certain time, whether years back they were solving problems, but today they've become challenges, or the solution, that today's solutions might be our next generation's problems. So that dichotomy, when you're trying to solve, but you are causing in leadership, how to navigate and juggle it.
Thanks, Prof, for that. And you are asking the right person, because in medicine that exists all the time. In medicine, we say that poisons in small doses are the best medicines, but the best medicines in large doses are poisons. And that's very true. What it means is that when you are providing a solution to a challenge, you must provide it so judiciously that you are aware of its side effects or unwanted effects. And you actually just want to exploit the wanted effects of the solution you are providing to a problem. Because too much of anything can be problematic. If you do ingest medication for longer than the prescribed period of time, that medication will treat you, yes, but then it will start causing its own problems. And this is probably what you are talking about. And a judicious leader must know that. They must know that when you provide a solution to everything, there is always the reverse side. That's why the fridge is cold in front, but at the back it's hot. Because there is always an opposite to everything. There is an opposite, simultaneous opposite. When you fire a gun, it's going that way, the barrel comes back to you. So we must judiciously know the solutions we are prescribing, what they can do, the limitations, and how far we should push them, so that we don't push those solutions to become problems or generators of problems by themselves. That is what a judicious leader would do. And that is another quality of leadership, being able to judge. If you're a doctor who is giving people overdoses of medication, treating the problem but causing side effects which are unwanted, you inject somebody too much of a drug which treats TB but it leaves the patient deaf, that's not okay. So that is always there. In medicine, we know this every day. We deal with it every day. Judicious administration of solutions to problems is very important. And that is the job of the leader, to know that. And if a leader says, it's not my fault, it's the solution which is causing the problem. No, it's still your fault, because you are injudiciously applying the solution. And it comes back to you. That's what I can say about this, Prof. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Any thoughts there, ladies and gentlemen? While we're still waiting for our colleagues as well, you spoke about the people tolerating bad leadership. Why do we come to that stage as people that will really tolerate? Is it a point where we don't know that this person is not a leader, he can't lead, or we know that this person is not providing leadership anymore, but we just go along? Is it ignorance, or why really would come to a stage where we will not remove people that we've put there? I mean, obviously, whether appointed or elected.
Prof, thank you very much for that question. I've had a lot of personal experiences with it. It is not that people tolerate. You see, there is a lot in our character, personality, and behavioral traits that's not okay. A lot. And sometimes we tend to be expedient about things. We say, as long as I'm benefiting. We have countries which have been torn to pieces, have become rags. My own country is a good example. It was a beacon of Africa, or even Southern Africa, at independent Zimbabwe. But now it's a total wreck, But there are still people there who still support those leaders who brought that country down to its knees and to where it is today, not because they really support them, but because they are benefiting something from the support that they are giving to the people. Their pockets are full, their bellies are growing, while everybody else pockets are empty, the bellies have thinned out, and the ribs are showing. But because they themselves, because of connection and connectivity and association with those in leadership, they are eating, they are benefiting, and they continue to say, oh, this is good leadership. Not because they know it's good leadership. They know it's bad, but it's benefiting them. This is when I said the other time that public leadership needs somebody to have a calling. To have a calling. I will tell you, this week in this country, there is a whole hula baloo going on about a public policy which has something to do with National Pension Fund, enactment of a National Pension Fund. And the proposed bill is not so good. And I told one of the ex-ministers who has been, who knows I know this, because that's what social protection is about. Prof, we were talking about people, social protection. Yeah, I'm an occupational health and social protection specialist physician. Things like workers' compensation insurance fund, national pension fund, national health insurance fund, basic education insurance fund are my specialty. So I told this guy that, no, look, this bill is not okay. It needs to be changed. And you need to go to talk to the CEO of this own institution, which is actually leading in that thing, to say, she must bring it back and give it to somebody who is a consultant like me, who can juxtapose it against best practice standards and point out the gap between what is proposed in the bill and also what best practice standards need to do, and then bridge the gap. This guy went, he's a former minister, he went and talked to the CEO. Instead of coming back and say, okay, the CEO has agreed with this, he came back with a proposal that, the proposal that says the CEO has agreed to give him a contract to go and lobby MPs and all the people who are opposed to the bill so that they can agree to the bill as it is. And then can he rope me into this lucrative contract? We could go and then persuade the MPs, the labor, government, employees to say, no, accept the bill. I really got heartbroken. I said, no, I can't bring myself with a clear conscience to support something and lobby for something that I know is wrong. What will I be telling the people I will be lobbying it for? What is it? No. Say, I can't do it. My conscience is clean. If you don't have a calling, I would jump onto the bandwagon and run away with a few millions. But my conscience says, no. The millions can stay. I can't go and tell people lies that this thing is good for them when I know it's not good. But the other guy was already changed, and it already bought into the idea of lobbying, rather than lobbying these guys to make it right, but lobbying for other people to accept it in its bad state. And I said to him, do you know, it's like you are having problems with your wife and you go to a marriage counselor. Whether it's a marriage counselor, a man or a woman, then the marriage counselor decides to talk to each of you separately. Then he comes out of one conversation with you having run away with your wife. Now they are in love with your wife or with your husband. But you are supposed to provide solution. That's being unconscionable. I mean, if you have got the calling of the job at heart, you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't run away with the wife you are supposed to counsel to go back to the husband. Then you come out, you image with her as your girlfriend or the husband as your boyfriend. So we have unconscionable leaders and leaders without the calling for the job. If you have a calling at heart, you want to do something which is wrong, which will benefit you, but it's wrong. You won't, because you say, no. My conscience is clear. I can't live with myself if I do this. Even if nobody knows that it's me, but I can't live with myself because I know I've cheated people, especially the public, the whole country. You can't, millions of people, and you don't care. So this is the problem we have with our leaders and with ourselves as individuals. Some of us are easily sold out to selling out, to being individualistic. They have no conscience. They have no qualms about doing bad things. As long as they have full stomachs, full pockets, living luxuriously themselves, they will steal public money and go home and sleep peacefully eating it. How can you sleep peacefully eating public money when people are dying in hospitals for lack of drugs and you have stolen the money? That is the kind of personality, character, and behavioral traits which some of us have. And unfortunately, there is a whole lot of us who are like that. That's why I talked about in this thing, bringing up kids and children with good character, personality, and behavioral traits as a prerequisite for making sure that we get rid of criminality and even this cruel-heartedness, I could say, which we have as communities and as people. Thank you, Prof.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I see, I think there is something there in the chat room. Tsidiso is saying, good evening, thanks for your lesson. However, certain problems may take longer than anticipated to solve due to some factors to be taken into account. Should the leader then be rendered ineffective if it takes him long, or if it takes her long to solve a problem? Are there timelines that leaders should adhere to when solving problems? Any thoughts there, Doc?
Yes, there is always a pathway to solving a problem. And they are, you see, we have the goal is, or the final objective is to solve a problem. But along the way, we have got milestones or outputs which show that we are progressing positively towards solving the problem. Yes, if we want to go to America from here, we can't just be in America in the next minute. But there are steps which we take showing that we are going to America and we are making progress. If a journey of 1,000 miles is started by 1 foot forward, and if we are making those the steps forward, and it's visibly seen that there is positive outputs, it means that at the end of the day, even if the problem maybe takes years, 10, 20, or 30 years of, we will solve it. But where you don't see the positive outputs or the positive steps towards solving the problem, it means the problem will not be solved. So you have to assess. It's not like every problem can just be solved by the click of the finger. We know that. Some problems are short-term problems. They can be solved in the short term, in the medium term, intermediate term, in the long term. But there must be signs that we are getting there, not signs that we are going backwards. You see? And if we got Zimbabwe independence in 1980, and it was that much of a country with a certain GDP, per capita income, economic status, in terms of whether it was a low income, middle income, high income country, and then rather than actually move towards becoming higher and higher income, higher and higher GDP, higher and higher economic status, it's going down, and it has gone down. That is not progress, even if they say it takes time to solve. But you are moving in the wrong direction. We must be moving in the right direction to say, okay, we see you are a leader, you are trying, it will take long, but the train is moving forward. But if it's going in reverse, then that is leadership failure. So we must make that assessment. Yes, there are problems that take long to solve, but there must be positive steps towards solutions to the problem, not towards creating more problems or towards worsening the situation. Thank you, Prof.
So the purpose of leadership, ladies and gentlemen, Doc, would you say obviously your thesis, the purpose of leadership is, or one of the purposes of leadership is to solve problems, or would you say the overarching really, there will be other things that will do, but main thing is about solving problems as a leader, not creating a problem?
I would say by and large, the purpose of leadership is to solve problems and not to create any problems. Anything else that will be done in a leadership role is geared towards that. Remember, I said that you can solve problems by also maintaining a good status quo which does not need to be tinkered with. If it's not broken, don't fix it. And you need a leader to say, hey guys, this thing is not broken, don't fix it. Why are we trying to do things to fix something which is working? And we found people who tried to improve a working situation and then just made it worse and derailed it. So generally, I want us to think very well here and go back to our family issue, family problems. I mean, family situation, which is the basic social unit, is the family. What is the purpose of the head of the family then? Isn't it to solve problems? And the problems are like, does the family have a decent place to call home to stay? If not, the head must try to solve that problem of a decent home. Build a house, rent a house, not to build a mkuku which will fall on them when it's raining, or to build these prefabs which are not habitable. Does the family have something to eat? If you are the father there, you have to solve the problem of food. What about of health? If someone falls sick, you need to solve that problem. Education, kids need to go to school. You need to solve that problem. Transport and communication, you need to solve that problem. Safety and security, you need to solve that problem. So generally speaking, the purpose of leaders is to solve problems. Right? Where there are no problems, maybe we don't need leaders because there is no problem. But we also need them because they need to maintain the status quo so that it doesn't become problematic. Don't fix what is not wrong, maintain it in a correct working order as it is so that it can continue to work as well as it is working. So let's not confuse the purpose of leadership with the process of leadership, or what it means when you say, okay, a leader is going to find resources, allocate resources, monitor, and that's a leadership process. That's not the purpose. That is what they do when they are leading. But their purpose is to provide solutions to problems, to challenges, and to also maintain the situation. And the maintenance is a problem on its own because it needs input of energy and make sure that the systems are working. There is nothing which is lacking. If something breaks down, it's fixed quickly. If you go to a big company with big automated machines, they are always breaking down, but people are always fixing them and making sure that the production line is not affected, and they are solving problems every day by maintaining the status quo, which is functional. So I would honestly say, you called it a thesis, but I'm sure I'm willing to research this one and publish it and give a PhD on it to say the purpose of leadership is to solve problems, number one, and also not to cause problems. Because the people who can cause problems in an institution more than anybody else is the leader. The leader can cause immense problems. Leaders can take countries to war, which are necessary wars. You take your country to wars with other countries, you cause problems for your own people. They get killed because of animosity against them, because of what the country is doing to another country. And that is all because of the leader. It's causing problems for people. I gave that good example of the German guys, Wilhelm II and Adolf Hitler, who brought immense problems to their country by starting a world war. And the country was devastated and was rebuilt, and then it was devastated again. But afterwards, they said, no, we are not going to be involved in these things. They outlawed their leaders from involving themselves in wars, just like what Japan did. It outlawed people involving themselves in war because they were causing problems for Japanese people. They were bombed out twice by an atomic bomb because their emperor was hardly causing problems for them by declaring war on another country, and then it's not him who died but the people. So we really must know that the purpose of leadership is to solve problems and not to cause them. That's what I think.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And I like your example there that the head of the house, whether it's a she or it's a he, the purpose, one of the purpose or main purpose is to provide a shelter for the family. So whether it's a mkuku is a shelter as well. Obviously, it will depend on the affordability. So to say that it must not be mkuku, but it must be a brick and mortar. So, but we just need to correct that. That we are not saying people who are staying in mkukus, they are not staying in shelters or in the real homes. Yeah, very, very, very
but Prof, let me
situations. Go
on
ahead.
that one, Prof. It's failure of our political leadership to let people stay in things which are not called decent houses, because there is a definition of a decent housing, and we know that there are people who cannot provide decent housing for themselves. And that is where governments come in and provide decent housing for those people, or cause them to be provided decent housing. Many people think that governments have got to do the building of houses and so on and so on. No, they don't. Actually, they can leverage on the private sector to provide those houses while they do the necessary which government must do. And this is what most European countries did. I will. Okay, I think someone is mistakenly let a kid onto the mic. Okay, I wanted to say that I asked some politicians the other time that when you are watching British soccer and you see these British soccer stadia, and they usually zoom out when they are showing you the stadium they show you the stadium from the air. One of the things that many people have noticed is that there are many residential houses around most of these British stadia, and these residential houses are all the same. They look the same. And they are nicely constructed in a row and in beautiful rows, arrays like that. And I asked them, do you think that these homes were built by the people who stay there, who actually own those homes. They built these homes, each one building his own house to be like his neighbors. And the answer is no. They were not built by the people who stay there, but they were caused to be built by government. They were not even built by government. They were built by the private sector, leveraging on by the government leveraging on the private sector, and then government making sure that people who needed houses got into them and paid what is called rent to buy. So your father dies, you take over, you pay until it's yours, and your grandchildren end up staying in a nice, habitable, fit dwelling, which is called a decent home or a decent house. As here, we give people pieces of land to go and build. Where does the guy get the money from if he doesn't even have money to eat? Where will he get money from to build a decent 2 or 3 bedroom house with water, electricity, flush toilet, and everything? No, they can't. But if you leverage on the private sector and the private sector builds and they give to this guy and you government underwrites it and say, if he fails to pay, I'll pay you, and let the guy then with his family stay in this decent house, then they will stay in a decent house. We can't say people they should stay in whatever dwelling they can afford. We'll be going back to the Stone Age. People will bring rocks and caves and make them in town there and bring all these brick and mud and sticks and stones and stay in whatever dwelling, and our towns will look very ghastly. So failure of government to provide housing for all is actually failure of leadership. Thanks, Prof.
Yes, no. Thanks, Doc. Thanks. I think all of us we agree with you there. So what I was just correcting there is that we must not create a perception that if there's anyone attending here, maybe for the first time, that this platform may be advocating that those people who are staying in Kokos may not be a proper shelter. So that's what I was just saying, to say we know exactly what you are saying. Ultimately, it's just to move the people to brick and mortar to a better places, but we know that for whatever situation, there's still people are living in those areas, and we respect them, and they're very good people who are staying there. But thank you for your I think there was a Lucky there. Lucky Sibia says, what can a leader or leadership do to ensure they don't cause problems unawarely or unwittingly? What lessons can be learned from self-executed problems by the leadership? Over to you, Doc.
Yeah, leaders usually do not lead alone. They lead with a group of people in a leadership circle or in a leadership executive or in a leadership team. This is because they have got, a leader has got his own strengths and weaknesses. And when you bring people together, those with their own strengths and weaknesses, and you exploit the strengths of everyone in that leadership team, you usually end up with a very strong team. But a leader should be willing to be taught, willing to to learn, and willing to acknowledge that they might not have got it right, or they might not, their point of view might not be the correct point of view. But if a leader comes and then they are a know-it-all leader and they are not willing to be taught, then they are bound to make mistakes and they are bound to cause problems. But if they ask their generals to help them, I always liked the kind of leadership which we had during the good old days. I believe in monarchical democracy or monarchical rule for the reason that if done properly, things will work out. And many people, I've always told them that, do you know some of the most developed countries with high GDP and high standards of living are actually monarchs? And the people wonder, yes, they are. For example, the second biggest economy in the world, which is, I don't know, it's now, Japan has been the second biggest for a long time. It's a monarch. And the standard of living in Japan is very high. It's ruled by an emperor. Yes, there is an elected prime minister, but it's a monarch because it's got an emperor. It's the Japanese empire didn't disappear and the emperor was there, and I'm sure recently people realized, so our president being received by the emperor in Japan there. The UK itself is a monarch. Luxembourg, Sweden, Denmark, all these countries, they've got very high GDPs and highly developed, but they are monarchs. Do you know why? There is something that we don't want to learn from here. The monarch does not rule on their own. In fact, they don't get themselves involved in politics. They are an overseer of the whole nation. And then they have got what is called royal councils. Each ministry, each arm of government is overseen by a royal council. So ministers cannot just do what they want, run away with stuff. The royal council will say, hey, you are not doing what you are supposed to do. According to the law and whatever, this is what you are supposed to do. And if you go against them and telling you that, they will tell the authorities, which is the monarch, and the monarch will remove you. If you refuse to go, they will make you go. And I will give an example where many people don't realize it, but it's true because many people don't really look at it. Look at when the former British Prime Minister came in with a whirlwind landslide, Boris Johnson. He had the biggest landslide ever that ever people had in Britain. Even bigger than the previous guys who had bigger landslides. But in barely 2 years, he was out. Why? He was individualistic, strong-headed, they say it, argumentative. He didn't listen to anybody. He even prorogued parliament at some point. And it looks like he was actually running the show. But no, you don't run the show in the king's country or in a monarch. The monarch is always going to run the show. And it was so surprising to people that within the shortest space of time, that guy was out. And I want them to say, remember the day he ended up waking up to resign, he had actually refused to resign by midnight when a group of his very few remaining loyalists had gone to tell him to go. He said, no, I'm not going. And that was after midnight. But the following morning, he was begrudgingly, he didn't use the word resign, he resigned. Why? Because in a monarch, there are systems that will call you to account. Hey, my friend, this is not your country. Yes, you say you were elected and you keep on doing wrong things because you think you can. In this country, you can't because it has got a ruler, a God-given natural ruler who is an overseer. And the overseer has decided that you are not doing well. Please go. And he went. And everyone was shocked that this guy only came in with a very big majority in 2 years. I mean, 2 years before that. And then he was going full of shame and everything else. And afterwards, he even quit to be in politics because he had realized that contrary to what he thought, he could do anything what he wanted. No, you don't do that. So you would find that the details, I'm leaving them out because some of the things I'm talking about are very sensitive because people don't know this. When we have got natural leadership, if a leader is there by nature, there is no need for you to be stealing people's money, to be doing corrupt things, to be aggrandizing and making yourself rich. Everything in the country is yours. And you don't have to work for anything. You are given, you are looked after, and you are not going to be in danger of being removed the following day or the following year. You know you are there. And so you need to have it within your heart now. This is the leadership calling I talked about. To want your people and your country to live well, to prosper. Unlike our come and go guys who come 5 terms, I mean 5 years, 10 years, they loot, then they go, and the country goes down, they don't care. In Africa, most of our our leaders, after they leave office, very few stay in their own country. A lot run away and stay somewhere else after destroying their own country. And they become fugitives. And yet they were leaders. This is because of that no leadership at heart, no, they are not having a calling and they are doing things for themselves. So at the end of the day, leadership must have a calling. And if we have the kind of leadership which you can put in place to have a calling for the job, especially natural born leadership, that is more likely to sustain people. Just check it out. I want everybody to go back and then write, Google up the richest countries in the world, countries with the highest GDPs, countries which are called the happiest countries, and check out in the top 5, you will find that maybe 80% of them are ruled by kings and queens. Although you might not know it, because this one is actually a monarch. Maybe people don't even know Belgium is a monarch, Sweden is a monarch, Norway is a monarch, Denmark is a monarch, Luxembourg is a monarch, Britain is a monarch, Japan is a monarch, Spain is a monarch. People don't know that, but that is the truth. And this is the kind of leadership they have. The leadership that has got people's wishes at heart, and they are just overseers. They don't involve themselves in politics. They oversee that things are being right. If they are not being done right, they will tell the politicians that, my friend, it's time to go, because you are not doing things right. You need that. We need a father figure like God. Do you know one of the reasons when people don't fear God, they become animals in terms of cruelty and doing wrong things to each other? But if you know that even if you get away with it, there is somebody who will not make you get away with it. You will probably do it circumspectly and be afraid. So you need that person on earth here to say, even if you cheat everyone, that person you won't cheat, and they won't let you get away with it. Then our leadership will then be people driven, people oriented, and they will do things that will develop our countries, not bring them down, bring them back, and devastate them. Thanks, Prof.
Wow, thank you. Thank you, Doc. And I think what we are saying about monarchies system, that is very consequential, Doc. And I think maybe we really need to find another time in this platform where we can just discuss about that system, because uh, they came to Africa, they brought us democracy, and then they destroy what system that we used to have. They criticized, but they're still retaining, and that is doing well for them. So I think the question one day we need to ask, what went wrong? How can we restore that it can be still working right? I think that's it takes me to the question there in the chat room from Professor Wellington Twala, is asking exactly that. What about monarchies in Africa? Do you have good examples in Africa? And can I ask you, Doc, to answer this question? This will be the last one, and then you can give us your parting shots after that, and we'll close the session. Thank you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. We in Africa, we don't have a lot of these intact monarchs left. We have, I know we have Lesotho, we have Morocco, we have Eswatini, and we have the Zulu monarch in South Africa, and other monarchs as well. But as far as having power to provide oversight to government, I think the only monarchs that do so is in Eswatini, Lesotho, and Morocco, right? But the problem is that we have been, like you said, heavily influenced by Western pressures, but we haven't studied what they do themselves to keep their monarchs out of politics, but very influential in terms of having oversight over everything. Trust me, the British monarch, which I know very well, has got oversight over everything. They don't get involved. But when you do something wrong, they will stop you flat on your toes or on your feet, regardless of who you are. Boris Johnson, they stopped him. And maybe not only him, Tony Blair, when he lied about weapons of mass destruction, he went to see the Queen, and the Queen, with fine, no one talks about what happens in the Queen with the Queen. They go and see each other every Tuesday or Wednesday. I think it's Tuesday. You meet the what is called the Privy Council, and after bickering in the House about the war in Iraq having been a waste of time and having been waged on lies, Blair refusing that it was not waged on lies about weapons of mass destruction. And after having convinced the monarch to sign off for the British troops to go there, and they died. And he didn't. The point he was refusing to accept was that there were no weapons of mass destruction, and he believed that. And as a leader, you should not believe in things that are not true. And then he caused the monarch to sign for a war which was not correct. After refusing to go, he also went the same way as Boris did. He just went there, and the following morning he came and said, I'm resigning. He left. And do you think he just resigned of his own accord? No. He didn't, because there is certain ways by which these councils work. They don't interfere in politics. They let you do what you want. But when you come to doing what is wrong, that is where they draw the line. That no, you can't cross this line. Yes, you can do what you want within the law, but this one, you are trying to break the law and you are trying to cause problems for our country and its people, and it's bigger than you. It's bigger than anybody, and we can't allow you to do that. We need such a godly father figure on earth to stop some of our politicians from destroying our countries. If there was such a godly father figure in my country, Zimbabwe, I don't think we would be in ruins as we are right now. We won't be. I tried in 2000 to tell the president, myself personally, president, this idea of going around beating people and taking their farms and whatever is not a good one. Yes, we need our farms back, but there is a better way of doing it without causing disaffection for ourselves and for everybody else, and then bringing sanctions upon ourselves. But they refused to listen. But if there was this godfather figure who would have said, no, I won't allow you to do that, it wouldn't have been done. So that is one day, hopefully, with these, I don't know how the monarchs, which I talked about, the 3 monarchs in Africa operate, but when you have a monarch, its duty is just oversight, full stop, nothing else. There is, one day maybe you will give me a chance to talk about the 8 levels of power within a public governance system, and that each power level must be separate from the other in both physically and in functionality and in the person involved. The person should not be involved everywhere. If you are an overseer, you say an overseer. You are not going to be involved in policy making, in government. You leave policy makers to do that, executive management to do that. You just become an overseer and that's it. You remain there and be powerful as an overseer there. So one day, maybe when we get there, we can talk about it and we can have an insight into how some of these monarchs work. And I was saying to some people, if we come back, if I asked you, Prof. Mazwe, where you come from, you would probably say you come from a certain area where there is a chief or a district. And in my country, I come from, the exact area I come from a chiefdom. And we identify ourselves down to, from the chiefdom, then we have the village in the chiefdom, which say this is the village. The village is led by a traditional headman. The chief is led by a traditional chief. And then after that, our system was disrupted. And then they brought in these district executive councils, elected people and so forth until at national level. But we still maintain that kind of traditional system down below there, and it works very well. If someone is causing problems in a village, the villagers will gather and they tell him, we won't tolerate you doing this. And the person will stop. But we come to town here, if your neighbor is thieving and causing problems, you can't do anything. If you do anything, they will shoot you. In the village, you won't shoot anybody. They will actually come down on you because it's a traditional way of making sure that we live harmoniously together, which we had, which was destroyed, unfortunately. So let me just conclude by saying, ladies and gentlemen, I wish that we could go back and really think about this issue which we talked about. There are certain digressions which we have gone into which are related to the issue, but the point of the matter is that if you're a leader in an institution, be it a home, a company, a public institution, a mayor of a town, a leader of a country, your main task there is to solve problems and also not to create them. So if you find you are creating problems or you are failing to solve problems, if you have it within your heart, if you have got what is called driven or heart-driven leadership or character, personality, and behavior, I think it's time to step down and say, I have failed. Can somebody please take over? Because you can't just be there for yourself as a leader. You are there for the organization, for the institution, for the good of the institution that you lead. A father is there for the good of the family. It can't be that the father is there for his own good. So same applies with the mother. If they cannot be of good there for the good of the family, then they have no business being there. And it really starts, right? Just take it from the family level and cascade to the national level and see that the similarities are there. If you are a leader, you are there to solve problems. You are there to provide. You are there to make sure. We can't have a situation where we have good leaders and crime is going out of control. Poverty is going out of control. Joblessness is going out of control. Hunger and poverty and disease are going out of control. But still people say they are leaders. No, good people. And let's try to make sure that we put systems in place that make us capable and able to change leaders that are not serving their purpose, that are not solving problems, and leaders that are creating problems for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks, Doc. Thank you so much. Very insightful points there. And we've really, yeah, very, very inspired us and empowered us. As you've said, that we've even addressed or raised issues that really still need to be explored further, or maybe still need to be explained further. But thank you so much, my brother. The point is, as leaders, we are, yeah, this way to call, yeah, I agree. I know exactly what you're trying to say. When leaders are calling, at least they must be called. Unfortunately, even that one is it's a bit problematic now, because even in institutions where there is calling, whether it's church or religion, there are no more, or not there are no more, but there are those ones who would say they are called, but when you look at their behaviors, and you can see that it's not called. So, but I know exactly what you're talking about, my brother. I understand you. Thank you so much. The purpose of the leader or leadership is solve problems. We are there as a leader. That's why they are leaders and they are followers. If you are not capable anymore, shift aside, let another person lead, because you cannot be there to create problems, to cause problems, to lament about problems. If you are the one who's lamenting, and who's going to lead? Because us as the people, we are looking up to you, that lead us. If you are unable to do it, then give another one who might come with fresh ideas. And thank you so much for reminding us that. That's powerful and very, very helpful. Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for those, all of you, for joining us, especially those who've joined us for the first time. Please do remember, we meet every Wednesdays. We are here again next Wednesday. Same time, same place, same details. So please do join us. This session is adjourned now until we meet next week, Wednesday. Thank you so much. May God bless you, and may God bless our beautiful continent, Africa. Nkosi Sigalele Africa. Thank you so much, and goodbye.